Hi, I'm Ryan Graham. Welcome to Northwest Newsweek. A devastating blow to the economy of the small community of Earl Falls. The mayor says the town's sawmill is being shut down indefinitely. Interfor, the BC corporation that owns the sawmill, is using softer language, saying that operations are being temporarily curtailed and the situation will be evaluated week to week. Still, it's the latest sign of trouble for the hard-hit forestry sector, which is now grappling with a crippling 45% softwood lumber tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Ear Falls Mayor Kevin Cahoot posted this to Facebook on Thursday night, saying, quote, "The announcement of an indefinite shutdown at the Ear Falls sawmill is heartbreaking news for our town." He goes on to say that the town is in contact with Premier Doug Ford and Associate Forestry Minister Kevin Holland. Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association President Rick Dumas says his organization will also continue working with senior levels of government.
How do we make things better? How do we get less red tape? And I know government's reducing red tape, diversification in the wood industry. How do they utilize more of that product and diversifying within the industry itself and getting that wood to the market? And of course, we know what's impacting a lot of our industry right now is tariffs. You know, with the tariffs and the impact of that, and we have to get through that. And we know that Prime Minister Carney's been working with, President Trump. And Premier Ford said clearly, like, we got to get this guy out of there because the reality is he's impacting Canada.
Unifor, which represents Ear Falls sawmill workers, is also calling for immediate government actions. The news of the shutdown comes as part of a broader announcement from Interfor on Friday that it's reducing overall lumber production by 26% this quarter, citing persistently weak market conditions and ongoing economic uncertainty. That announcement made no mention of U.S. tariffs. Well, Ontario Premier Doug Ford was in Kenora on Wednesday to officially announce provincial support for the new Lake of the Woods District Hospital project. That $50 million in funding was included in the government's spring budget, but the Premier added some new money for a portion of that project. Joey Langdon has more.
And I'm thrilled to announce today, this is beautiful, our government's $50 million investment to advance planning for a new Lake of the Woods District Hospital right here in Kenora. And I can't wait to come back.
The Premier was joined by MPP Greg Rickford as well as local leaders to confirm the funding for the planning of the new hospital. Officials also celebrated the $7.6 million investment to procure and install Kenora's first MRI suite at the existing Lake of the Woods Hospital. Ford then announced more money to relocate and expand Wigwas Elder and Senior Care at a site next to the new hospital.
We're providing a one-time planning grant of $1.9 million to advance the project towards construction, which is expected to begin next year.
Wapsimaung Independent Nations Chief Waylon Scott, who recently ran provincially under Ford's PC Party banner, had a special request for the Premier for the new hospital project.
Premier Ford, I think we're going to need your help to bring the federal government to the table. I know that I've been able to bring the province as well as the federal folks under one roof for my community issues, but I think this one is kind of a little above my pay grade. So
Well, I'm going to hear from the Prime Minister on Thursday. He's going to come over and we're going to have a good long chat about quite a few different things, and I'll mention this. I'll mention the request. I'll mention if he has an opportunity, because he really looks forward to meeting the Indigenous communities, First Nations communities, and I'll make sure Chief Scott has a word.
A construction timeline has not been confirmed, but hospital CEO Cheryl O'Flaherty previously said she expects construction to begin sometime in 2028. Joey Langdon, TBT News.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Thunder Bay on Tuesday. He spoke with workers at the local Domtar sawmill about the 10% in extra tariffs the United States has put on softwood lumber, along with other federal issues. When asked what measure he would take if he was in power, if mills close, he said he'd prioritize unlocking federal dollars to keep people working.
We'll make sure that they get the EI and other benefits, but we have to fight to keep the jobs and keep our people working. Canadians want paychecks. Paychecks are the only way to sustain a family and support a brighter future for the country. So I would take emergency action to unlock hundreds of thousands of annual new homes being built every year with Canadian lumber so that we can take advantage of all that extra lumber we have to house our people who desperately need roofs over their heads. And that means let's get rid of all taxes on home building. And then you'd imagine the building boom we'd have if you got rid of $200,000 of taxes on each home.
One person died and another was sent to hospital following a shooting in Ganuguming First Nation on October 8th. There was a 2-day manhunt for the suspects and community members were put in a shelter in place. The violent incident prompted Anishinaabe Aski Nation leaders to declare a state of emergency when the NAN leaders gathered for a justice forum in Thunder Bay. Jessa Clement reports.
Ganuguming First Nation, along with other communities in Anishinaabe Aski Nation, are calling on the federal and provincial governments to act on the growing drug, gang, and violence crisis in northern communities. This comes after a drug-related shooting in Ganuguming on Wednesday that resulted in one person dead and the other in the hospital.
My deepest condolences from our council for the loss of our loved one, our community member, who lost, he lost his life yesterday to a violent crime in our community. I do have another community member that is in ICU, and we pray that he recovers.
Ganuguming Chief Sherry Taylor says there continues to be a lack of resources to address alcohol, drug, and gang-related crime, not just in Ganuguming, but in other First Nations around Northern Ontario.
So much issues with drugs and violence and gangs in our area. I have been working hard with the help of my council to try and resolve and to bring safety into our community. We had called a state of emergency about maybe a year and a half ago, and that didn't do anything. All they did was band-aid type solutions, temporary fixes, but there was no permanent solution or support for me and my community.
NAN is renewing its call for Canada and the province to meet with leaders, warning that the violence will only worsen unless governments step up.
And I call on Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Carney to help us in this effort. While they are eyeing their agendas on our territory to take our resources, to extract our resources, that there's a danger to that. And they need to be aware of what those dangers are.
The shelter-in-place advisory in Ganuguming has been lifted, but Ontario Provincial Police are asking residents to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity. The investigation is ongoing. Jessa Clement, TBT News.
We now know the identity of the man who was killed in that Ganuguming First Nation shooting. OPP did not release his name, but the victim's family identified him on a GoFundMe page created to help with funeral costs. 27-year-old Sebastian Tawagishig was staying in Ganuguming, and his parents were urging him to come home to Thunder Bay because they feared for his well-being there. The violent incident took place on October 8th, resulting in Tawagishig's death and leaving another man in hospital with serious injuries. After a 2-day manhunt and lockdown in the community, OPP arrested 2 teenagers from Brampton. 18-year-old Quinton Hooper and a 15-year-old boy were both charged with second-degree murder and attempted murder using a firearm. OPP continued to ask for information or surveillance footage from around the crime scene in Ganuguming of the day of the shootings. Well, a Sioux Lookout resident has been arrested following a serious assault back in August that turned into a homicide. The 34-year-old man was found at a home on Miller Crescent with life-threatening injuries. The victim died in hospital 1 week later. The OPP recently announced that 40-year-old Chester Skunk has been charged with manslaughter. The investigation continues, and anyone with information is asked to contact Sioux Lookout OPP or Crime Stoppers. Moving on, an individual has been charged in connection to a fatal fire that occurred in Deer Lake First Nation in 2023. On Sunday, October 29th of that year, the Anishinaabe Police Service responded to a residential fire where 3 people were located deceased and 2 others were transported to the hospital with injuries. The Ontario Provincial Police and the Office of the Fire Marshal were asked to investigate. It was determined that the fire started at some point after fireworks had been set off inside the residence. The 3 victims who passed away were 33-year-old Kylie Meekus, 37-year-old Thomas Meekus, and 36-year-old Jamie Meekus. This past Monday, Michelle Meekus, age 28 of Deer Lake First Nation, was arrested and charged with 3 counts of causing death by criminal negligence and 2 counts of causing bodily harm. The accused was released from custody and is now scheduled to appear before the Ontario Court of Justice in Deer Lake on Tuesday, November 25th of this year. Mail delivery has resumed in Thunder Bay and across the country, but on a limited basis. The union representing Canada Post employees announced its transition from a nationwide strike to a rotating strikes. The head of QPW Local 620, Leo Favreau, explains how the rotating strikes are expected to roll out.
It means that we go back to work on Tuesday, we deliver the mail as per normal, and the national office will let us know if we go on strike one day, and it'll happen throughout the country where it's just a one-day strike.
The strike began on September 26, and local COPW members quickly mobilized in front of the Canada Post office on Alloy Drive. The walkout came after the federal government announced an end to door-to-door delivery. The union's national office met with federal officials on October 9th and decided to change the strategy. The local picket signs and tents are now being dismantled, and Favreau says he doesn't like how this whole strike situation has been handled.
I'm not terribly happy. At this point, it seems like we're kind of backing down, but kind of that we've wasted 2 weeks. Really, I think this is the way we should have went in the first place.
How about your members? Are they looking forward to getting back to work?
I think they are. A majority of them weren't happy being out here, and to go back and serve the public, that's what we do. I hope they settle it soon. I really do. We are all just so tired of this, and we would just like an honest contract. Some fair negotiations, get back to work.
A tentative deal has been reached to end the support staff strike at 24 Ontario colleges, including Confederation College here in Thunder Bay. In a statement released earlier this week, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union said details of the tentative agreement would be presented to members and employees when back on the job on Thursday. It's still unclear when a ratification vote will be held. About 10,000 full-time employees across the province spent nearly 5 weeks on the picket line after they walked off the job on September 11th. The workers are employed in areas like financial aid, student services, food service, libraries, IT, and more. Hotel development is a growing trend in the region. We'll have more on that after this short break. Welcome back. New hotels are popping up all over the region, a sign that investors are taking notice of the overall growth and communities in the industries in the Northwest. One of these companies, Winnipeg-based Rideout Bay Developments, has been aggressive in building Studio 6 branded hotels in northwestern Ontario. They're built to serve not only mining and forestry workers, but the growing tourism industries in these communities. CEO Ben Cohen tells us that their Hornpain property is the only traditional hotel there, and its success is leading to more locations elsewhere.
We have 2 more hotels currently under construction. We have Dryden, which I'd say is about 50% complete. Construction will be finished in March, and we're hoping to have the doors open for May long weekend. We're under construction Sioux Lookout. Those projects have been greenlit and under construction. And there are 4 more at Atikokan, Fort Francis, Dryden, Sioux Lookout. And then so far, Geraldton, Chapleau, and Hornpain east of Thunder Bay.
The tentative date for the opening of the Fort Francis location is set for October 29th. OPP have charged one driver following a dramatic crash involving 2 transports on Highway 17 near Ignace on October 8th. It happened at around 9:40 p.m. that night. Police say the 2 tractor-trailer units were traveling in opposite directions when one of the vehicles entered the opposite lane, resulting in a collision. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries. A section of the highway was temporarily closed in both directions, and it later reopened to 1 lane alternating traffic while the cleanup was carried out. A 34-year-old female driver from Alberta has been charged with making an unsafe move on a lane or shoulder. Well, the Legion Hall in Atikokan will be getting much-needed upgrades thanks to a provincial government grant. Joey Langdon has more.
The Ontario government, through the NOHFC, is investing $90,228 to support renovations at the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 1.
Royal Canadian Legion Branch 145 has called this place home for almost 50 years. In that time, it has served as one of the main meeting places in Atikokan. But First Vice Elizabeth Shine told us before now, Atikokan residents had to travel to Thunder Bay or further for large events like weddings. With these upgrades, though, they could do that from their hometown.
I'm just overexcited is what it is right now. But whatever anybody wants to do, we're more than welcome to host it here. We're proud to do it, and we hope people will look to us in the future. It's the hub, and it's open to anybody that wants to do anything. Our Remembrance Day gets almost 100 people out here all the time.
MPP of Thunder Bay Atikokan, Kevin Holland, was on hand to announce the grant, and he let us know that as a former regular of the Kekabeka Falls Legion with his family, he knew how important Legion Halls were.
You know, places like the Legion in communities like Atikokan, they're really the gathering place of the community, and be able to support the Legion in that work, but as well as the more important work they do in honoring our veterans who have given everything for us.
The upgrades will be used for, among other things, updating electrical work, replacing flooring, and upgrading the bathrooms. Some work has already begun, with the project slated to kick into high gear in early 2026. Joey Langdon, TBT News.
Last week, Thunder Bay hosted forestry sector leaders from across the country. The Canadian Institute of Forestry held their 117th annual general meeting at the Delta Hotel. And although U.S. tariffs were not the key focus, organizers knew the ongoing trade war was naturally going to be a part of their discussions. Reagan Johnson has the story.
Over 100 people gathered at the Delta Hotel from all over the country. This conference will stretch over 4 days, with guest speakers from all areas of the forest industry. The presenters here on day 2 focused on climate change, wildland fires, forestry education, and disruption in the industry. Curtis Cook, the executive director of the Canadian Institute of Forestry, spoke about the importance of this gathering.
The theme of the conference is finding opportunity and complexity, which I think is really appropriate at this point in time in, I think, in Canada in general, but also in the forestry industry. There's been a lot of challenges. We're dealing with challenges around climate. We're dealing with challenges around innovation within the industry. We're obviously dealing with economic challenges on both a domestic and an international level.
One of the latest economic challenges in forestry would be the U.S. trade war. Forestry is one of the most important economic drivers in this region and crucial to the national economy. And one of the major points of contention is the rising tariffs and duties on softwood lumber and other forest products.
Lately, obviously, we have tariff issues and challenges that are coming from the United States as well. And while it's not a direct focus of our conference, we tend to focus on the education, the advocacy, and the science and sharing that type of information. It can't be separated out. Everything is very much interconnected within the forestry sector. So obviously those discussions will happen today as well during the week.
Having the national conference here in Thunder Bay is a big deal for the local industry. Many environmental organizations and programs were highlighted at the event, cultivating an environment of learning and progress in the forest industry. Reagan Johnson, TPT News.
The Fort Francis Lakers junior hockey team kicked off this SIJHL season with an electric start. Stay tuned to hear all about it.
I just want hockey players, I want competitors, and guys that are willing to come to Fort Francis and work and play the right way.
Welcome back. Well, the last few years have not been kind to the SIJHL's Fort Francis Lakers, but a few weeks into the junior hockey season, they caught national attention. The team started the season with 5 straight wins. Joey Langdon has more.
The Fort Francis Lakers haven't had a winning season since their SIJHL championship in 2016. They haven't even been to the second round of the playoffs since 2018. What was once a top team in the league has lately struggled to stay out of the basement in recent years. But now, Luke Judson has taken over behind the bench and turned the Lakers into one of the hottest teams in Canada. They're on pace for a winning record and have been ranked as high as 10th in the country. All of this despite returning only 5 players from last season's opening day roster and icing the shortest, lightest, and youngest roster in franchise history. As Judson says, though, it's not always about the size of the dog in the fight.
Yeah, not necessarily about the size or quickness of a player. I just want hockey players, I want competitors, and guys that are willing to come to Fort Francis and work and play the right way. And I think we've got a lot of them here right now, and those are the players we want.
Judson is also the general manager of the team, meaning it is his responsibility to recruit young players from across the continent to come to Fort Francis. But he says the pitch is simple. The organization and the community takes care of you.
It's just a great place to play junior hockey. When you have winning hockey teams and you're playing well, the town gets behind you. We've got a great rink. We're centrally located. Our travel's better than anyone. We travel well, we eat well, we put them in good equipment, we put them in good apparel.
Despite the lightning fast start, the Lakers still have a long road to go since their height of being 1 game away from the Centennial Cup tournament in 2015. Coach Judson says they're just going to take this one game at a time.
You know what, we're not going to set specific goals, just that we're going to get better every day. And I mean, we're not looking too far ahead. We're looking at practice tomorrow to see what we can do to get ready for this weekend.
The Lakers will look to continue their hot streak next weekend with a doubleheader at home against the nationally ranked Sioux Lookout Bombers. Joey Langdon, TBT Sports.
A group of volunteers from Mattawa Animal Wellness Services and the Toronto Humane Society have been visiting remote First Nations to provide some much-needed veterinary care. People in Nibinamik, Neskantaga, and Martin Falls were lining up at their community centers with their dogs and cats to see the vets for everything from neutering and vaccinations to emergency care. Animal wellness specialist Judy Cannon says they managed to get up to 90% of the pets in each community spayed or neutered. She spoke about one dog named Champ, who wasn't able to get emergency help in Thunder Bay recently due to the vet shortage here.
Champ was brought into Thunder Bay, so flown out at his owner's expense, and tried to get veterinarian services in Thunder Bay, but was denied because the animal wasn't a prior client of any of the vets in Thunder Bay. And the poor little guy had a stick caught in his mouth, and everybody in the community tried to get it out, but he was too upset. So he's been waiting until we came, and we brought him in, and we were able to fix that.
More than 200 pets were treated in the clinics. The group from Mattawa and the Toronto Humane Society will be touring more of the Mattawa communities again in November. Well, that's all the time we have for now. I'm Ryan Graham. Thank you for joining us for Northwest Newsweek. We'll see you next time.